this is Sir Rithkin, and I am here with His Grace, Konrad von Krixen, and my sister, Ashaxi, who's a member of the Order of the Laurel. She's going to be guest hosting today, and this is the third interview in the Ducal series. Konrad has been King of Artemisia 3 times.
Correct.
And I'm very happy that he agreed to come on tonight because he is a very smart guy and a very well-rounded guy, and I'm sure it's going to be super interesting. So, can you tell us when you started in the SCA?
Sure. I first ran across the SCA probably in 1989. I was at a convention, a game convention in Boise, and they had a demo there. And then a friend of mine that I knew, Bill Clemo, he was in the SCA and kind of pointed me in that direction. And so I went to an event probably fall of 89-ish and right then and started off then.
And was fighting what drew you in?
Yeah, it was a big draw. I thought it was really cool. They did a demo and they had a person in armor, and people from the crowd would come up and swing the stick at him and stuff like that. And he would block it, of course. And this was Morgan from our group. He was
Duke Morgan.
And I watched that and I thought, man, how hard is it to block one shot at a time if some guy is just trying to tee off? That doesn't look that hard. So I bet I could probably do that, but I wasn't one to go up and try, but I came out to a fighter practice and started from there. And
did Morgan get you into armor?
He was a part of they had a thing back then, they called it the Fighters Mob. There was just a flop house of 3 or 4 guys that were living together that were all SCA guys. My friend Bill, Morgan, and then Christian Fletcher, Mark Jones was in that group. They were all kind of living that life and getting that stuff. So I put a bunch of bits and pieces together and started on my way. I was probably about 20 years old, I think, maybe back then, about that time.
And did you start with Sword and Shield?
No, not at all. I started out polearm. I found that the most interesting, exciting, Sword and Shield. That's just something I picked up later just so I could show that I was proficient or demonstrate proficiency in that style. But I was a polearm fighter and spear fighter, and melees was my first love, and that's where I really focused my attention.
Is it still your first love?
Yeah. Tourney fighting to me, it's not as fun. I don't enjoy it as much. You know, tourney fighting it's a really good way to, you know, show what you know for a crowd and compete, you know, mano a mano against an opponent that's trying to meet you with your best while you meet them with their best. But to me, the war environment, I think, is a lot more fun and a lot more exciting.
Besides fighting, what are your other interests?
I think the beauty of the SCA is that it fosters a chance to run across and meet people that have different interests that bring different things to the table. I think there's all kinds of different things to do other than just fighting in the SCA. For me, the big draw is really learning how things worked and taking apart puzzles and of how, you know, why did they wear this piece of equipment, or how did this tool was used to do something in period. I think that's where the chance to really reflect on that and think about that gives a really strong connection to the past and a little insight into what we have today and what they had to deal with back then.
You were fighting when Artemisia was still a principality, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Did you fight in Coronetless?
I did. You know, I as a up and coming fighter, and especially then, you know, you fight in those tournaments because that's part of your progression, and that's part of what you do to show that, hey, I'm a good fighter, and I can learn how to do things and react to, and adapt in those situations. For us, that was twice a year and then you had 2 coronets a year, and then a crown every other year. Back then in Dayton Belt, we had, a northern crown and a southern crown. So I lived up in Boise, Idaho. So, a northern crown would be somewhere in Salt Lake or something like that. And then southern crowns would be, of course, down in Arizona or someplace like that. So for us, we didn't get down there that often to be able to do that. So you didn't, sometimes if there's northern and southern kings, you didn't have a lot of chance to interact with people from the other half of the kingdom. So coronet lists was a really good chance to be able to twice a year come out and see how you fared against the other, the other fighters in the kingdom, and be able to show, what you can do and where you kind of ranked in that, in that type of situation. Some people don't like to fight in those tournaments, and some people don't like to enter in those tournaments because, they're worried that if they win, they can't, perform the duties as chosen, so they don't fight in those tournaments. But I think a lot of times that's an overstated position, to where it's a good chance for you to show the people of your kingdom who you are as a person, as a fighter, and to be able to understand and test yourself in a real kind of combat situation against the other fighters of the kingdom to see how things stack up.
So before you were knighted, did you fight polearm in tourneys, or were you a sword and shield tourney fighter?
I did. I started out, and I fought glaive and stuff like that for probably 2 or 3 years, just as when I started exclusively, and then saved up and was able to get a fiberglass spear of my own and use that in tournament, not in tournament, but in and stuff like that. I did fight, a couple of single combats with spear and a backup weapon, just for fun. But, and then for a couple of years I did that. And then they're like, well, you should show that you're proficient in other weapon styles. You should try another weapon style. So I flailed around in sword and shield for a while to try and learn that. But I got some really good instruction along the way that really, really helped me out and helped me meet the minimum standards for a sword and shield fighter in our kingdom.
Did you have a knight that you were squire to?
I did. I was squire to Duke Basil, and he was my knight, but he lived several hours away, so I didn't get to spend a lot of time with him. But I was fortunate that Sir Sagan von Ostensee moved to our barony and was in our group, so I got to fight him a lot, and he trained me and helped me adapt and understand fighting, or how, and really I credit him with really making me, he taught me all the good things that I do, and all the bad things, those are all mine that I brought to the table.
Sagan's an amazing teacher.
Yeah, very, very gifted in that respect, you bet.
So your shield.
Oh, I'm sorry, you broke up there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you a heater fighter?
Yeah, I have a bunch of shields. Probably, I probably got, I don't know, 8 or 10 different shields that I have that I like to break out at practice and try things out and stuff like that. But primarily, I have a big heater. Probably it's probably 23 by 34 or so. But I'm probably 6'5.5", 250. So I'm a fairly big person, but it's still a big heater.
You are super tall. I can attest to that. Make me feel short.
Yeah.
So was it your goal to get knighted?
When I first started fighting, it wasn't important to me to get knighted. I thought it was really cool. I wanted to go out and earn the respect of my opponent. I wanted them at the end of the day to say, man, that guy, he gave me what I expected, and he provided me a challenge, and I respect his abilities and go from there. I wanted to another guy across the line. Then at the end of the days, we go and have a drink and have a good time and reminisce about what we did. But the actual goal and process of, trying to get knighted, I kind of went at it a different way, and I had a break in kingdoms. I started off in Artemisia, and then for 3 years or so, 4 years, and then I moved to Ontier for probably 3 years while I was in college up in northern Idaho, and then moved back and was another year or two kind of bouncing around in our kingdom, and then it was about that time that I got knighted. So it was kind of a start and stop, but it really benefited me to be able to experience different kingdoms and different cultures at that time. So I think it was a net plus for me.
So what year were you knighted?
1998, I think. Yeah.
And before we went on, you were telling me that you were the first peer in the new kingdom of Artemisia?
Yeah, exactly. I was really lucky in that respect. We had just gone to kingdom. Thorfinn and Sarah were the first crowns of Artemisia, and he was technically my grand knight. So he was the guy that 2 years earlier gave me my AOA when I came back, and then 2 years after that I got knighted. So I was really lucky, when we had transitioned between kingdoms from when we split off from Atenveld. So they had the last Atenveld court was in Salt Lake and barony of Luxembourg. Duke Brian, that you'll have on eventually. He was our crown then, and a number of my friends had already been knighted, and so they're Atenveld knights. And then a number of people in my peer group, they all got Atenveld fighting awards. They got Hawkslewers and things like that wasn't going to be available to us. And I didn't get one at the last court. I was pissed. I was like, I wanted one of those, but now I'm out of luck. But I got over it rapidly, of course. But then, 4 or 5 months later, I got knighted, and that was the first peer elevated in our kingdom. So I'll take that any day.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, really cool.
So did you take a vigil, or were you knighted the same day?
I did. I was knighted the same day, but they tried to play a trick on me. About 2 weeks before, I dislocated my kneecap at fighter practice. My kneecap rotated on the side of my knee, and I was kind of in bad shape. And so I was kind of gimping around, but I was the autocrat at this event, Raptor War, in our group, and it was up in the mountains. Beautiful site, beautiful place to get knighted, but I was the autocrat for the event. During the day, they said, hey, the king wants you to set up this tent out in the field, blah, 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 so go do that. And I'm like, okay.
You had to set up your own tent?
Right, and so I start dragging all the stuff out there, and then my friends that were there, Duke Floki, who was a knight of Atenveld back then, and Sir Gregory Beck, they were like, oh, we'll help you put this thing together because you tell us what to do and we'll put it together. And I was the only one that had to put this tent together. So I told them, do this, this, and this, and then we got the tent up. And then, 45 minutes later, they had all the fighters come out to start fighting. They stopped and brought me up and announced that I was going to be put on vigil and be knighted that night. And so they all came and had a big joke. We made you put up your own tent. But I was like, man, you put up the tent. I just told you what to do. So it worked out really great. And so I sat vigil that night. And then at midnight, there's this stream that ran through town that separated the fighting fields between these two big trees. And so it was night and had all these torches, and there's people in a big semicircle on the other side of the stream. And then my knight brought me forward to the edge of the stream, and I walked out and stood in the middle of the stream, and everybody watched, and they gave me the bath, dumped water on my head, and I walked out, and that's where they knighted me. So it was really awesome.
So Shaxi and I both went out to Raptor War last year to see Sir Kelwin get knighted. And one of the cool things that you guys do as a kingdom is put your shields around the vigilance tent.
That's
is
right.
that a tradition that was in place back when you were knighted? I mean, if you were
No,
the first one.
that was the first one that we did that. I was a lot of that was the prompting of my lady to try and make this tent look better and cool. So she's like, well, why don't you guys put your shields around there? And then we all thought about it. You know, that's a pretty cool idea. You know, you can come and show support for the aspirant that's going to be elevated this position. And so you get a chance to show, you know, hey, I support this person and I'm here to protect their vigil tent or whatever. But it was a really cool way to show, hey, we're all in this together and we support you.
So Cortland came up with that at your vigil?
That's my understanding. Yes.
Okay. Wow, that's super cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's a cool tradition that we have, and it's fun to do.
Were you a couple at that point?
We were dating at that time. That's correct.
So you met in the SCA?
That is correct. I was friends with her sister, Mistress Pasha, at that time, and then we met at a Christmas party that her sister had. But yes, awesome. And she was not in the SCA. I mean, not.
She is now.
Yeah, it took some arm twisting, but I think she was able to find, you know, her talents and really show what, you know, a gifted artisan she is.
Do you have any regalia left from when you got knighted?
No, when I got, I had some things that were left over, but when we first started, we had a set of things that we had a belt and spurs and chain that, you know, that were kind of a legacy set. Belt was from Duke Deaton
Duke Deaton, you said?
That's right. Duke, okay. Yeah. Duke Deaton Claymore.
Yeah.
And, went through like the first 3 or 4 people and then it stopped after that. And then I bought a cheap sword. I thought it would be cool to be able to pass on. So we had a sword, a baby knight sword that we would pass around. And I think that's actually still floating around somewhere too and gets passed around.
Well,
so when did you decide that you wanted to train and win crown?
As far as win crown, I don't know if that was a focused goal. I think that was more of an after effect of really buckling down and focusing on training. You know, a lot of times at practice, you know, most SCA practices, they're really not good practices. You know, it's basically you go out and club the crap out of each other for 45 minutes and stand around and then that's it, you know. But I was able to get into with Sagan, who ran a legitimate practice to where, you know, we would meet Sunday morning and we would show up, we'd go through you know, set drills that we would do, and then we would learn how to critique and watch fighting. You know, you'd stand in line, there's a teacher and a student, and then everybody else that's waiting to fight would stand in line and watch what was going on. And then he would demonstrate a drill, the person would run the drill, and then the other people standing in line would give critique. When you're doing this, you're moving your foot, or when you're doing this, your hand's falling down, or you're rotating your body too much, or you're covering your face with your shield, or things like that. And so it was a really good practice. It only lasted probably 30 minutes. We all ran the drills and everybody stood and gave critique. And then after that, we went to practice, the normal scheduled fighter practice. You know, we'd meet there and do that early in the morning, I don't know, 8 o'clock. And then we would show up at noon in the park and then practice. And then when I was fighting regularly in preparation, stuff like that, we, you know, in our barony, we have 2 practices a week. So Wednesday nights and Sundays. And so those were the times we did it. But he ran a structured practice. And I think that is something that we miss a lot in the SCA. You know, you go to a practice and somebody's fighting, and then 10 people come and they all give you conflicting information on, you should do this, you should try this, you should try this, or you're doing this and don't do that. And so at the end of that practice, it's like, what did I learn, or what did I practice and do? So it can be very confusing, and then really doesn't promote progression in a lot of ways, in my opinion.
So how long did Sagan run that practice?
We ran that pretty regularly for probably 2 years, at least 2 years, I bet, when I was really, starting to take, a strong ownership in what I was doing and how I was progressing. For me, it's learned a lot of how to break things down in your brain and to try and explain those things. He's an excellent teacher, and so he's really good at being able to explain and put you in the right mindset to understand and really benefit from that lesson. We talked about, there's training, practice, and combat. And so when you're training, there's a trainer and a student. The trainer imparts a lesson, the student receives a lesson, and then you have dialogue back and forth. And then if you're practicing, that's when you're implementing those techniques with an opponent that you're fighting, but at any time you could stop and talk about that. And then, of course, combat is 2 men enter, 1 man leave. This is the evolution of what you've learned, and you put it into practice, and you go and give your best and see what happens.
So I guess what I'm trying to understand is, after you got knighted, like, I'm a really goal-oriented person.
Right.
Was there a goal for you to work toward? And
I think it was a goal, but as far as tournaments, I don't think I won a tournament until after I got knighted. I was always in a really heavy group with people that won those tournaments all the time, and so I had competed and had some success, but didn't win. And so to me, the goal of, I'm going to be the king and do that kind of thing, it wasn't quite as strong. The first tournament that I won after I got knighted was a King's Champion in our kingdom. And for us, that's a knights only 5 weapons list. Yeah. And so, you fight 5 different weapon styles, and then whoever, wins the most is the champion for the crown for that ring. And I was fortunate enough to win. And for me, that was huge, because I had actually won a tournament, and I was able to fight other weapon styles than just the one that, I brought to the table. So it was really good for me to finally win something and feel like, okay, I really accomplished something. I can be really proud of the performance I gave in this. And then we had always fought in crowns, because that's how our kingdom culture was. Where our crowns were smallish, 25 or less than 30 people. So the pool of people was pretty much the same most of the time. And so you had a really good idea of who you were going to be fighting, or who you had to beat to actually win. And so it gives you good practice in that respect. But
so are you one of those people that just they entered crown and they just sort of won by mistake?
I don't know about win by mistake. You have the idea that when you go out and meet someone, that you're going to try and beat them. You're going to give them your best fight, and that's what you're going to do. And sometimes they run together, and then there you are at the end. It's like, oh, you've won 3 crown tournaments. Yeah, but I've also lost 4 finals. I've been in 7 finals probably, and I'm a 4-time loser. So whatever.
Okay. Who are you in finals with on your first crown that you won?
The first one I won, I fought against Duke Brahim, guy from up north. He's been king. It was funny in a lot of ways. It taught me a lot of good things afterwards. We had fought, and at the end of the day, and I snuck a shot by him in the finals, and he went down. And so, this is back when you actually had film pictures. Someone had taken a picture And there he is dead, and it was a complete shock. It taught me a valuable lesson, because probably 2 years later, we were in the finals again. And it taught me never to try and take anything for advantage. Don't take anything for granted, because for all you know, the person that you're fighting is spent the last 6 months in constant preparation to destroy you personally. That is a thing, but is training with the idea that I'm going to have to beat this person, so I'm going to do everything in my power to get ready to fight that person and be ready to go. And we came out and we fought, and he gave me a great shot, and I went down and was dead. And for him, that was vindication, because he had the goal that if I'm going to have to fight, I'm going to beat that guy, and he went out and did it. And for me, it's important to understand that. So the person that you're fighting, you're going to just take what you see with that person. Don't take anything for granted, and expect the unexpected, because for all you know, they've really put in the work to show that they're better than you are.
Do you have a tourney day ritual?
No, for tournaments, I'm pretty standoffish. I don't like to get into a lot of banter or discussion or something like that. It's kind of business, to where it's like, okay, how am I gonna prepare myself? Have I done the work to get ready physically or mentally? So once we start, then we're going to start. And I don't like to have a lot of people around to try and help, even though they're trying to help. For me, it's better just to wait to call my name and go out and salute my lady and let her go.
Do you have something that you do when you enter the Eric before or I guess I should say list field, before they call lay on, to get yourself like mentally in the fight?
I'm kind of a slow starter when it comes to fighting in tournaments and stuff. So I like to warm up before. To me, it's easy to be too relaxed almost and not ready to fight. And so it's important for me to try to get that focus as you go in. One of the things that we talked about and practice in the instruction that I got is when your name is called and you're going to the to the list field, when you're going to the list field, you look at your opponent as they're entering this list field, and they're already showing or telling you how you can kill them or what you have to be aware of. You're looking to see, is the guy left-handed? Is he right-handed? Does he have a long sword? Does he have a short sword? Does he have two swords? Does he have thrusting tips? How big is his shield? How's it strapped? How much armor does he wear? How fast does he look? How easy or weary or things like that. So when you're standing across from the person, they say lay on, you've got a feel for how soon you need to be fighting.
So you do the Sagan assessment.
Oh yeah, you bet.
Yeah.
It's helpful for me, because that's your chance to see what's going on. And if you're in your own head and worried about, oh God, this strap's too tight, or I'm tired, or it's really hot, or things like that, that's stuff you don't need to be thinking about. You're trying to see, targets and opportunity and being able to capitalize on that.
So I want to circle back a little bit. It kind of sounds like when you prepare for a crown tournament, you need to be sort of left alone to be in your headspace, and you don't want to be bothered. I have gotten a lot of flack in the past as an inspiration for not being someone that's always on the list field and always attending my husband as he fights. And what he needs as a fighter is to know that I'm taken care of and I've got the kids handled, and he doesn't have to worry about that. All of that's off his plate. So what is your consort's role?
Well, and for every person it's different, but for me, the relationship that we have, my consort is always at the list field, and she's there to receive my salute, and I receive her salute back to me, and that's it. I don't want to put pressure on her or give her unnecessary, things to worry about, and she does the same for me. So we have that connection, And it's just part of the ritual of any fight when you start. You know, you make your salutes, and we're there to salute each other, and then she is there and present for the fight that I do, and then afterwards, that's it.
Yeah.
But for some people, you know, you have different lives and different things to worry about.
Yeah.
And some people, it's not important to have the consort at the list field, and that's fine for them.
So every time I've been out for an Artemisia crown, you guys do these pools, and they feed into like two people come out of. Like, you have 4 pools, and 2 people come out, and then it's sort of like a best of 3 single limb after that. Is that traditional there?
It's something. Excuse me. It's something we started a while back, and I think it's really good for us. You know, we have a large geographical kingdom, and so you travel a long ways typically to go to a tournament. Some people have to drive 8-10 hours to come, and so you drive 10 hours to get to a tournament. You're a new guy or a new fighter, and you're a double limb tournament in 2 fights. You have to go and fight the biggest, toughest guy in the pool to show in the tournament to show that you're not afraid or whatever. And you go and you fight 2 dukes, and then you're one-shotted 2 times, and then you're done. And that's the extent of your tournament. And so for us, with our smaller size, you know, you got 25, 30 people, you break them into 4 pools, you got 7, 8 people in a pool, and you fight, and they seed them by precedence. So you have a smattering of talent and ability in each pool. So you have a really good person usually, and then new people. And then you get a chance, you fight everybody, 1 fight, round robin in your pool, and they take the 2 best people out of the 4 pools, and then you're at quarterfinals. And so then it's 2 out of 3, and then move on to the next round.
So because like the first half of your crown is round robin, and the other half is like sort of a more, for me, traditional, because I come from a very traditional double limb tourney kingdom. Is there a different way you prepare? Because I mean, every time I fight round robins, it's just sort of like, okay, let's do the next one. Let's do the next one.
No, I think you fight those on your own, and you fight those at your own pace. And
okay.
It's good for me. And I think because I am a slow starter, so it's good to get a couple of good fights in to where you're getting your blood going, you're ready to go and ready to give your best fights. And you don't get punished as much if you lose a fight against a good opponent that you weren't ready for, or whatever reason, the lighting was bad or whatever. And so you have a chance to fight your way out of the pool still, even if you lose 1 or even two fights in the pool. So it's a lot more forgiving in that respect, but it gives you a chance to interact with the people in your kingdom and get.
So what's your favorite part about reigning?
To me, just to see the how other people can be enriched and feel part of the group and enjoy that type of deal. For me, group success is.
Can you shut the door?
Than individual success. And so you got the chance to be able to help people do things and accomplish their goals.
So something that I think is really cool about you is you have this household that's amazing. Are you the head of the household? Did you start that?
Technically, I guess that's correct. My wife and I, Duchess Cortland, we have a good household of people, but the goal when we put our household together is, it's a group of equals essentially. We're a semi-autonomous collective with a rotating chairmanship. But there's always someone that can make the final decision if final decisions have to be made. But at the same time, we all come and we spend our money and our vacation to go and have a good time. And I don't need a bunch of people coming to an event to wait on me or to do that. I have people that I consider my friends, and we're friends in this group together. We're lucky to have a number of extremely talented artisans and pelicans and knights in our group, and we do our best to have a good time.
So artisans.
Yeah.
You not only are a knight and a duke, but you're a laurel and a pelican as well.
Sure.
How far into your SCA career did you start down your laurel path? And what is your kind of big area that you're into? I know that changed.
The thing I really took part in ownership in our fighting community is to try and help people, look like something, and I think I was recognized as a persona development laurel, but whatever. I really wanted to help people find a way to really portray a person from the Middle Ages when they are on and off the field. And so quite often a number of those decisions that they made during their process, if they had just steered back in one direction, they really would have come and shown that. And so I just tried to help people and myself, and especially myself, know that if you just take the time during those design processes, you can actually really, with a little bit more effort, you can really achieve a positive result that's something that you can be proud of and something that, benefits the society.
So you costume?
I did, I sewed my outfits, and I dabbled a little bit minor in some armor making stuff just to clothe myself, but helmets and things like that, big fancy. I taught a class that basically in any time period in the SDA, you need 2 pieces of armor, and then everything else you need clothes to cover to look right. Mm-hmm. A good helmet and some other piece of armor. If you make a really nice jupon, you can cover up all your body, and if you have some really good looking legs, you're going to create a really good profile and show, okay, this is what a 14th century guy looks like. Or if you're an early period guy, if you have a good helmet and a mail shirt, you can be a Norman, a Saxon, a Norseman, or something like that with the right clothing and equipment, then that's all the armor you need. And you could make a sport kit to wear underneath all these suits of armor. You have to change as a helmet and another piece of armor. So
you did Battle of the Nations for a while, right?
I did. The first 2 years I did.
And that's right up your alley, right? Because melee.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun. It changed in some ways. It changed how you approach fighting in the SCA because the fighting is so different. But I think it's I wore the first year that we went, I wore a lot of SCA armor that was not a good idea.
Not sufficient?
Not really great. I went out there and I did my best. Didn't have really great armor, but we were all learning that very first year. And so we made a lot of corrections the second year and went from them. I made it through when we were in Poland the first year, and I really had some extremely sketchy body armor and back armor, and ran through a line and got chopped in the back by a Russian with a pole arm and hit the ground like a dirt-seeking missile and couldn't move my arm, and laid there on the ground and couldn't move my arm for, 4 or 5 minutes. I couldn't even move my arm, and I was laying on the ground. I was thinking, man, I'm going to carry my luggage in the airport. How am I going to get all my shit home? I can't even move my arm. But that's part of the game, and you learn and go from there.
So do you still use your armor from there in the SCA?
I do. I don't wear my helmet as much, but I still have a hound skull bassinet and stuff like that. Still have my body armor and all that stuff, and I use that body armor in practice every now and then and things like that, just to try things out and see how it's going. But it was a great learning experience, and I recommend it to everyone. If you're an SCA fighter, try some of the single stuff. It's not that big a deal. It's really not that big. You don't have to fight or grapple or punt someone, but just try swinging a real sword at someone and see how that goes. You know, that we have a lot.
The single stuff might be okay, but I don't want to play rugby in my armor.
No, melee, you know, it's not for everyone, you know, but the single stuff, there's no reason why anyone couldn't go and try that, you know.
Okay, so go ahead.
And some of the stuff you learn in the SCA doesn't translate at all, and some of it is good, you know. You have the idea that when you're SCA fighting, you know, you hit somebody and it's like, aha, I got him. Well, that's not it, you know. And once you actually go and fight someone in a singles match and go all out for a minute, 60 seconds, go and swing your sword at a guy for a minute, you'll change your opinion on a lot of things.
A lot of endurance.
Yeah, it's very different. Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
So I'm supposed to ask you about the story at Ontario West and the Giant.
Oh, we went to West Ontario. God, it's mid '90s. I think it was Castle Dunlop. They had the castle made out of car tires and stuff like that. And it was myself and Sir Decker, and Avaloc was our prince, and we were on the Prince's Guard. So we went with him over there. And so it was late in the day. It was 100 and some degrees or something outside, unbearably hot. And we show up to the castle, and Ontario's inside, and the Westerners are outside sieging the castle. And there's this big gate, and there's a little tower with people standing at the top. And Avaloc walked up and said, hey, I think Duke Frederick of Holland was one of the guys outside. Hey, we'll go ahead and take that tower out, and then you guys can run in. And he's like, oh, by all means, go right ahead. And so Avaloc ran up to the gate, and he was spear fencing with the people at the gate. And then Sir Decker now ran up to the base of the tower and got down on all fours. And then I ran up and jumped on his back and stabbed 3 or 4 guys over the top of the tower wall. And they started screaming, they've got a giant, they've got a giant. And the guys fell out of the tower, and they fell back from the tower, and then all the Westerners ran in and cleaned them out. So
that's funny.
It's a long time ago.
All right. Well, why don't we look at your sword? Do you have your sword with you?
Sure.
Okay.
This is it.
All right.
So
how long is that?
It's about 38 inches. So it's fairly long for a SCA sword, I guess. I use thrusting tips. Long time ago, Duke Bryan I was in his household with my knight, and we had a discussion about thrusting tips, and he's like, well, if you're good enough, you don't need a thrusting tip. Well, I'm not that good, so I use thrusting tips on occasion. So for practice, I like thicker rattan shaved down, like maybe inch and a half with shaved down to 1.25 inches to kind of make them rectangular, so a little heavier to use them in practice. And then for tournaments, they're just 1.25 inch, double strap tape. And then I use cloth tape rather than duct tape.
So is your basket aluminum or steel?
It's aluminum. These are old, super old, probably 20-year-old Illusion basket hilts, aluminum ones. I like the aluminum ones better than steel because they're lighter. I guess my sword balance is fairly far down the road. So they're a little hand heavy more than point heavy. For me, it's comfortable, and you can still whip the point around and things like that and get the end moving. But
is the basket hilt big enough for your hand? It looks really small.
They are small,
Okay.
And I wear just a leather demi gauntlet that covers my wrist, and then I don't wear a glove. I have bare hands.
So do you have your handle taped up, or do you just have
there's just a little bit of tape on there for grip, and then I shave the sides down a little bit, and then I put a groove where my index finger sits.
Is that grip tape or just regular tape?
Just regular old cloth tape, you know.
Like hockey tape?
Yeah. If it's too grippy, you know, it gets on your hand a lot. I hold my sword pretty tight with my, you know, thumb and forefinger, and then this is pretty loose and then tightens when I hit things, I guess. So for me, being able to let my hand relax in there is important, so I don't have it glued to my stick.
So do you have a trigger in there?
No.
No. Okay.
Then just a little rope lanyard so you don't throw it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So wait, can you hold that up again? Because so your yellow, does your yellow tape go all the way down, or am I just?
It just stops right there, and then I
Okay.
just take the end to clean it up a little.
It's an illusion on my screen. Then it looks like the yellow goes all the way, and I'm like, whoa!
Right.
He
Right.
tapes
No,
the
that's
whole
just
thing.
that's the rattan.
And then you tape the basket on. It has tangs.
Yeah, it has tangs, and I just use strapping tape. You know, hose clamps, they always break. They never work. Just tape it on really good with strapping tape, and they'll never come off.
So did you win all of your crowns with Sword and Shield?
Yes.
But your kingdom isn't Sword and Shield only and crowned.
Oh, you can fight weapon of choice. You bet.
Okay.
Sometimes people will have a restriction here and there for whatever reason, but for the most part, it's weapon of choice.
The third crown that you won, did you go for that one?
People always say going for crown. For me, I've entered the crown. I'm trying to win, you know, and so I try to win every time. I learned a lesson to me that I learned very on when I first got knighted. We had our local fighter practice. I was new knight, you know, I went out there and we had practice tournaments every week. Oh, we need to learn how to fight in tournaments, so let's have a practice tournament every week. And I said, okay, great. So we go out there and I fought a couple of guys, and then I lined up across this new guy, and I said to myself, all right, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to stand there, I'm going to let him throw, I don't know, 3 or 4 shots, and then I'll hit him because no big deal. And so I go out there, and as I'm standing there, he just bam, one shots me right in the face. And I'm like, you know, I'm never going to do that again. So when I go out in tournament, I'm going to try to win. And we can talk about that after the fight if we have questions, but that's going to be a combat fight for me. So if you're going to go fight and win, I don't join a tournament so I can vote somebody out of the tournament, or just join only so I can beat one person so they're not it. Nobody needs that. I'd had that done to me previously. There's probably 2 times where I was beaten in a tournament, and then the person the next round withdrew, and I was like, "Oh, that's not so cool." But that's how it was done, you know. For me and for the way I feel, I go and I enter. I'm going to try to win.
Right.
Not going to win all the time, but I'm going to try.
So
going for crown doesn't mean anything to me.
do you still run a practice like Sagan taught you? Do you still do that for
You know,
the people that you mentor?
I don't personally. I do work those drills with people when we work those drills at practice and things like that. I don't know. I just don't. I don't do that as much. But when we have people that get serious and they're like, "Hey, I want to try and do this," it's like, "Okay, here's how we're going to do it. We're going to do this, and that's how we're going to do it." And we go from that direction. But as far as, to me, it's up to the person that's wanting to go in that direction. It's like, I've got that goal. Can you help me make that goal? Yes, I'll help you make that goal. But I guess that I don't do that as much. But when I show to practice and fight in practice, if people want to do that, I'm always down to do that.
Have you had any of your squires knighted?
What's that?
Have you had any of your squires knighted?
Sir Marcello
Okay.
is my squire. He's knighted. He's also a laurel. So very, very proud of that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions, Dawn?
I'm looking at your questions. I'm going to ask a philosophical peerage question.
Sure.
What do you think the Order of the Chivalry does collectively well as an order?
I think they do a lot of things really well. One of the things that I like about being a member of the chivalry is that it's easy to understand how things work. If you're a Laurel and you're in a Laurel circle or with other Laurels, you have such a wide background of experiences and and proficiencies in different things, and it's really hard to be able to compare a fishing Laurel and an Elizabethan costuming Laurel to say who's the better Laurel or who's whatever. Or if you're in a Pelican circle, who's a better servant of the kingdom, or who's really makes things really work better than this person. It's tough. But with chivalry, you always understand where you stand. If you have problems or if you have disagreements, there's always a good way to solve that. And everyone knows where that's at the end of the day. And so I think the chivalry, it's really good to be able to have that outlet and common experience to be able to come together and decide things as an order. If every Laurel was an illumination Laurel, it would be very different. But we have such a wide variety of talents and diversity. It's really exciting, but it's a little more herding of cats, I think.
Yeah, it feels really random sometimes.
Yeah.
It is. You're right. It
is. And that's one of the things, it's like, oh, you're a Laurel. As soon as they put the medallion on, you're imbued with all the knowledge of the arts of the entire society, and you're now an expert in everything, and you're clearly not.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, you're a textiles Laurel. Can you show me how to carve this stone tablet? Probably not, but I do know someone that can help you do that. And I think that's part of the networking and understanding with the people and strengths and abilities, that if you have people that have those questions, you can get them in touch with someone that can help them.
I think that's my favorite part of my peerage is that network and being able to facilitate. I don't need to know how to stone carve.
No.
To be able to foster someone and hook them up with someone who can take them where they need to go. And I think that's really cool.
But at the same time, you might be asked in a arts and sciences competition to judge performing arts or something like that, because they don't have judges. And so what do? Well, you do the best you can.
I say no.
Yeah, exactly. I would do the same. Let me look really hard to find someone to help you.
Yeah.
How has your views on peerage shifted since you started and now that you're a quadruple peer?
Oh, I think, you have a lot of questions and expectations and things like that before, when you're on the path. I think it's going to be like this once you finally make it, once you're recognized as a Pelican or whatever, I think it's all going to be this. And when you get to that point, you can kind of realize, well, maybe I was a little deluded in thinking that this is how things were going to work. And you get a real understanding of people and culture and things like that to apply that against. And so it changes your expectations in a lot of ways. It gives you, you've seen behind the curtain of all these circles and how things operate and how you think they operate, but how they really operate. And so I think it gives you a better understanding and being able to impart some people that's like, hey, you should probably just calm down a little bit. It's not what you think it's going to be. So really focus on the things that you can control, and don't worry about what someone else is doing or how you're doing compared to them, because you don't have any control over that. You're responsible for yourself and what you can do and how others perceive you. And so it's important to cultivate that to the best that you possibly can.
Do you feel, go ahead.
I think that people think that, I don't know about chivalry, but I do know, people think Laurels are a lot more organized than they really are as a council. And honestly, we aren't that organized.
It's true.
People.
Right. And they, until they actually sit there and they go, gosh, these people don't know what they're doing, or, oh man, that person, I never knew that person knew that had that skill set or that ability. But, it's one of those things that just gets revealed over time sometimes.
Yeah.
Do you think that as you've been recognized with multiple peerages, that like expectations for you have changed, or do you feel pressure from that?
I put a lot of pressure on myself, but as far as the pressure that other people put on me, I didn't recognize it as much because I can't help them. I can't do what they want me to do sometimes, but I feel pressure that, that when I put on the regalia of that order, that I'm demonstrating and showing what I consider to be the proper and good aspects of that role. I saw you'd talked about peerage advice or knighting advice or vigil advice, and one of the best pieces of advice I got when I became a knight, my first peerage, was, don't wear your regalia unless you're dressed like a knight. Don't put on the regalia of your order unless you're a reflection of that order. Nobody needs to see it standing at the shower truck with your underwear and t-shirt on and you got your white belt and chain on. Who cares, you can wait until you get back to camp and then put your stuff on and look like you should. And so it's a reflection on all of us. If you're a costuming world, don't wear your medallion around when you're doing the same kind of stuff. So
but I sleep in it.
Well, that's fine. You can have it tattooed or whatever you like, but I think it gives a good reflection of for other people to say, okay, that's what a good peer looks like, because they're dressed like a good peer.
It's also sort of a good signal of I'm on or I'm not on.
Sure, that's exactly right. If you're standing in line at the shower truck and you've got your towel and your shorts on, it's like, this is not time for court business or things like that. I'm here having a beer, trying to get a shower because I've been hot and doing stuff all day. So when I get back, then, we can do all that stuff. But just take it easy.
That's really practical advice.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have any more questions, Dawn, or should I go to my 10?
Would you consider reigning again? Are you going to fight and crown again?
I would imagine I probably would. One day. We've had a lot of situations where it really wasn't practical for us to do, and so it wasn't a driving force. We had a long break between our first two reigns and then our third reign. I don't know, like 8-10 years almost, and so. It's something that you can come back to and enjoy and stuff like that. But, just because you enter a crown doesn't mean you're going to win. So
right.
I could never win again, and I'd be more than fine with that.
All right. Are you ready for the rapid fire 10?
Sure.
Okay. If you could fight anyone in the world, who would it be?
I'd fight my instructor, Sagan.
Who would you like to see reign in your kingdom?
We have a number of really great up-and-coming young fighters. I think Sergei would be a great breath of fresh air for our kingdom if he were to win.
I agree. If you could talk stick with anyone in the world for an hour, who would it be?
Done it many times. Talk stick with Duke Uther from the West. I think he brings a lot to the table and good understanding and seen and fought a lot. So I enjoy his company, and so that'd be a good person to talk to.
What is your favorite medieval-esque or period movie?
My persona movie is probably Alexander Nevsky. Black and white, Sergei Eisenstein, Teutonic Knights fighting the Russians. To me, that's really what I wanted to do. I wasn't on the Russian side. I really liked the Teutonic Knights side. So for me, that was really a strong hook for me.
Okay. If you could add a rule to the rules of the list, what would it be?
As far as rules, I think our rule number 6 is probably the best, you know, or the whole "don't be a dick" rule, I think would just helps things so much.
What is your favorite? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, show respect to your opponent, show respect to the populace.
What is your favorite tournament format?
I like our pooled list. I think it's a lot of fun. You get a lot of fighting in, and you get a chance to fight a lot of people and can do different things if you want.
What is your favorite event?
My favorite event probably is Penzic for us. It's a long trip for us, just like it is for you. It's like 34 hours one way if you drive straight through, which we have many times. So when you get there, it's very relaxed. If you're not part of the, if you have no responsibilities, it's the best event to go to. You know?
So I'm going to add a bonus question to that. How many bathroom stops are appropriate on a trip to Penzic?
I tend to not take stops,
No.
and I really bring the heat on people that take a lot of stops, to the point to where certain people were denied having drinks because every time we would drive 200 miles, they'd get a 64-ounce Coke and then drink it, and then 2 hours later we had to stop again. So
you and I could never road trip together.
That's right. The person that calls for the stop is the last person that gets to go to the bathroom.
Oh.
All right. If you could have any helmet in the world, regardless of cost, what would it be?
I think helmets I really like. I think the next helmet, I'm looking for a really nice ornate brass Vendel helmet, you know, Iron Age German or something like that. That's kind of an area I'm really interested in right now. So that's probably the next thing I'm probably going to go after.
It's Saturday morning at Estrella, and several people are waiting outside of your tent and want to talk to you about last night. What did you do?
I probably went to bed too early for their liking and wanted to know I was back in my camp by 9:30, trying to take it easy while everyone else wanted to stay out.
Okay, last one. What and who was your favorite fight ever?
I've had a lot of really good fights with people that I respect. I think the first crown I won was a real magical moment for me and for my lady both. And so when I was able to sneak one by against His Grace, I think that was probably a really important fight for me.
Cool. So that's probably about all we have, unless you have any words of wisdom you would like to impart before we call it good.
No, this is probably easily the most talking I've done in a couple of months.
Well, I really do appreciate you agreeing to come on and accommodating our schedule, and we really appreciate it. And I just think you're such a fascinating guy.
Oh, it's very kind of you. Thank you very much. I really was really excited to come and talk to you guys. I think what you're doing is very interesting, and I think as you work through the rest of the people that on the list, there's going to be a lot of great information and things to follow up on. But if anybody has any questions or wants to talk about stuff, just come find me and I'll be glad to talk to you.
Great, thank you so much. And I just want to plug the next one. I'm going to be talking to Duke Havord, who has reigned in Atlantia, Glenaban, and Antir. And I'm going to be talking to him at 3 p.m. on Saturday because we have a time change. So just tune in for that. Thank you again, Your Grace.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye now.